I'm here with writer Michael Ondaatje and director Daniel Brooks from the show Divisadero, a performance. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So tell me, what is it about these particular characters and this story that compelled you to retell the story of Divisadero in a theatrical way?
You begin with a difficult question.
For me, he's the character.
Right, that was your desire.
You know, I mean, I think what's interesting is that the characters in a book and the characters on stage are just become completely different people because they have less to work with in a way. You know,
Right.
The book has 300 pages or more, and a scene between Coop and Bridget is like 4 pages, and then on stage, the way you kind of funnel it down, it's about eight sentences.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's seeing them in a very different way, from a different perspective, and so that is an event is very interesting to me as a writer. I'm sort of learning how you not just translate something to another form, but also how it works in another genre. You know?
Yeah.
So that is what intrigues me about something like this.
You know what I'm curious about is when people, for instance, are listening to Maggie tell a story about Anna, whether they picture a different Anna, whether they have a picture of Maggie in their head, or if Maggie morphs in their imagination into some imagined character, or how much they relate the person they see on stage to the character that is being narrated. I have no real sense of that.
I don't know. I mean, I think people judge the actor often by what they're wearing, as much as
yeah.
how they're
Yes.
speaking and how they're. You know, I think what's wonderful in the show for me is the moments when Maggie suddenly becomes the girl. You know,
Yes.
when she starts to sing that song with Justin, the two of them, and Maggie's nature changes.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
you know, and there are other times too. I mean, the scene when she just says something and Justin starts singing over there, and there's no response in her face, seemingly, and you're just. It's like that thing about Hitchcock. You just put any face next to a previous shot, and that face will mean all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
So just having Justin singing over there, the way Daniel's got it, you know, you're just looking at that face and trying to find out what's going on there emotionally.
Yeah. And I think if you've read the book prior to the show, then you probably already have a sense of Anna in your head. I know that I had read it before, so in my head I already had an idea of what Anna looked like and what she sounded like. But then when you see her come to life, it sort of morphs into that version of her.
And for people who've read the novel and have actually an intimate relationship to the novel, their experience of the play is partially relative, it's partially comparative.
Yes.
David talked a lot about how it redefined the novel for him in a way.
Yeah.
It is for me an experience of redefining the novel, you know, in a really interesting way. That it's not just the things being edited down to the core, but also just realizing kind of connections that you're not fully aware of as a writer because that happened 300 pages before or something like that. But I mean, by the kind of process of the staging, you know, a line like "a woman in distress," I mean, it's loaded, you know. So when Maggie says it the last time, they sent kind of gasp of sort of delight to the audience.
There's a connection.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you actually later, but that brings me to a point of, I had read somewhere that you don't read your books once they're published for the fear of wanting to change things. How is it having your words spoken aloud every night? Does it make you want to, or is
Go
it
back
a
to the
different?
book? No, luckily it doesn't make it makes you want to go back to the script, I guess.
Oh right,
and
it's a different.
get Daniel's advice on something. You know. Going back to the thing about how the characters look, because it's interesting. Because when I write the books, I tend not to know what they look like.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have whether she's got long curly hair or black. You know, I may have a rough sense, but I mean, so I'm sort of in the character looking out. So I'm inside Anna looking out, or inside Claire looking out, or who. So I think a reader, and I think it's true when I read other people's books, I'm much more conscious of the look of the actor. So in a way, the translation to stage isn't as shocking as it might be for a reader. I don't know if that's
yeah.
something
That makes sense. And in terms of the collaboration, that we've talked a lot in articles about the show that this is really a collaborative piece. How do you two collaborate together? Was it something that it started with you two and you wrote the script, and then Daniel, you looked at the script, and then the actors came in? How was the whole collaboration?
Well, I think the collaboration began right from the beginning, you know, before the script was even written. You know, we kind of talked about what the scope of the book was, what part of the book you would use, or the whole book, or a part of the book. And then we would meet, and then I would come up with something, and then we'd both change things quite a bit. I mean, it was very mutual shaping of the text.
It was, in fact, I wouldn't even be able to say when there was a thing that we would call a script, when such a thing existed. I mean,
Right.
really, we were taking the novel into meetings with either just the two of us or Maggie and then Tom McCamus, Jennifer Simone, and slowly picking what we wanted to read and who we wanted to read it. And
Right.
then, I think fairly early on, the most drastic thing that Michael did was he wrote this Mancini monologue. And that was the most overt effort at reconstituting what
Yeah.
existed in the novel.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, it was good for me to do that, you know. And it was, because that was this huge barrage of like 40 pages about gambling, and suddenly by deciding to pick this one character, who was really quite a minor character, given the perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
But it really also formed around the people who came in.
Right.
So he wrote that for Tom.
Right, that makes
And
sense.
Tom's presence dictated a certain way of treating the father.
Oh, right, okay.
Having Maggie, who's over the age of 30, dictated how we needed to treat time.
Right.
It was only
So that
for
felt-
this particular version that we brought in a younger actress
Right.
to sort of give a suggestion of a younger Anne.
But I think there was one time we spent a couple of days trying to see whether we should tell the story, first of all, from the future, from what is essentially the third act. And we were writing it together and putting it together and thought, hey, this is great. But then when we realized, then we thought we could go back to the first act as go backwards.
Right.
And we realized we couldn't do it. So we lost a couple of days.
But
it was
we
a
did.
great
We did a number of things like that.
Right.
Of reconceiving how we might enter into it and how information was laid out. But essentially, fairly early on, we had a form of the structure that we have now.
And then, there's a whole question of the monologue at the end by Anna or Maggie, and the question is, how do you have that there without? Because
It's
in
still
many,
a controversial question.
yeah, because essentially, we're hardwired to certain kinds of endings.
Yes,
as an
that's so
audience,
true.
whether the film is 28 minutes, we're used to that, and if it goes 31 minutes, it's hell. So, and then the idea of the couple going back to the farm, Claire and Coop, that sounds like an ending. And I always knew that was not the ending.
Right.
So, and I think we both agree on that. Some people still think, well, why have this epilogue in a way? But to me, the epilogue or the last monologue actually is just essence of the story. It's her story.
It
It's
is,
her,
yes.
it's her,
It has to
it's
come
her
back to
drama,
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. That's
And it's also, the staging is so simple, but it's really functions around who's standing at the mics, and the show, I feel, had to end with Maggie alone, with a number of an empty stage and empty microphones around her. That's very important part of the experience and how you experience time through the piece.
yeah.
Yeah, I think also what was interesting to me, as watching how Daniel shaped the thing in the end. It was. I remember the first workshops, the first act, everyone was moving around. They were all over the place and recreating a kind of world of the farm and so forth. And then gradually he got stricter and stricter, down to 4 microphones, and you're locked to them. You can't move. And I kind of love the idea, but I was a bit nervous. And it's because I think it's very brave of
Yes.
deciding to do this way, and it kind of, in fact, I think, doubles the emotion of the violence and the sex and everything else. So I think, you know, having people still, very still on stage, and how barely looking at each other. So when they do look at each other, it's kind of
Yeah, even more
huge.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.